She thought she was just a nobody, a poor nanny with torn shoes and barely enough to eat. But one ordinary day in the park, she saw a little girl crying in terror and held her close. What she didn't know was that the girl's father, a millionaire CEO, was watching. And in that single moment of kindness, both their lives were about to change forever. The sun was bright that afternoon, and the city park buzzed with the usual laughter of children and chatter of parents. Yet for Rosa, the world always felt a little heavier. She wasn't here with her own child. She couldn't afford to have one. She was here because she worked as a nanny for a wealthy family on the far side of town. Her worn-out sneakers dragged a little on the ground. Her second-hand dress fluttered in the wind, and her tired eyes kept scanning the playground where the children she cared for played. Her employer's kids were not unkind, but spoiled. They often made fun of her accent, her simple clothes, her frizzy hair that no brush could tame. Still, Rosa smiled through it, because she needed the job. She had rent to pay, groceries to buy, and a sick mother back in her hometown who relied on the little money Rosa sent every month. While the children played on the swings, Rosa noticed something unusual. A small girl, no older than 6, sitting on the far bench, knees pulled up to her chest, tears streaming down her cheeks. Rosa's heart clenched. Children had always been her weakness. Their innocence, their vulnerability, their little hearts that carried such big fears. She glanced around. No adult seemed to be near. Parents gathered in groups talking. Couples walked their dogs, but no one paid attention to the girl who was trembling and whispering, "Mommy?" "Daddy," between sobs. Rosa rose from the bench, leaving the children she was responsible for, with strict instructions to stay where they were, and slowly approached the little girl. She knelt down in front of her, lowering her voice to a whisper. "Hey, sweetheart, are you lost?" The girl's big blue eyes, wide and filled with panic, looked at Rosa. She hiccuped through her tears. I can't find my daddy. I was playing with my balloon and it flew away. When I chased it, I couldn't see him anymore." Rosa felt a lump in her throat. The girl was trembling so hard, as if the world had turned dangerous and strange in just seconds. Without thinking twice, Rosa extended her arms. "It's okay. You're safe. I'll help you. We'll find your daddy together." The child hesitated, then leaned into Rosa's embrace, clinging tightly to her. Rosa rubbed her back gently, humming softly as if she were her own. She had no idea that, from a distance, sharp eyes were watching every move she made. Unbeknownst to Rosa, a tall man in an expensive suit had been pacing near the park's entrance, frantically searching the crowd. His heart raced, his breath shallow, his polished shoes sinking into the grass as he ignored the stares of strangers. Adrian Cole, the CEO of one of the city's most powerful tech companies, was a man known for his ruthless business strategies, commanding voice, and unshakable composure in boardrooms. But today, in this vulnerable moment, he wasn't a CEO. He was a terrified father who had lost sight of his daughter Lily. His assistant had stepped away for a phone call, and in that tiny lapse, Lily's balloon had slipped from her hand. Adrian had turned for just a second, and suddenly she was gone. Panic clouded his usually rational mind. "Lily!" he shouted, pushing through crowds, his throat dry. And then, as if the universe took mercy on him, he saw her. There she was, safe, unharmed, curled into the arms of a woman with tired eyes and threadbare clothes. At first, suspicion flashed through Adrian. Who was this stranger holding his daughter? But then he saw the way the woman rocked her gently, whispering comfort, pressing her cheek to Lily's hair with a tenderness that couldn't be faked. Adrian stopped a few steps away, almost frozen. He had met countless people in his life, from investors to politicians. Yet this simple scene of human kindness, stirred something in him. Rosa felt a shadow fall over her and looked up to find a tall man staring at her, his eyes intense, a mixture of relief and authority radiating from him. She instinctively tightened her arms around Lily, protecting her like a mother lion, though she didn't even know the child. Lily glanced up, saw him, and squealed, "Daddy!" before leaping into his arms. Adrian caught her, crushing her against his chest, kissing her hair again and again. "Oh, Lily, you scared me half to death," he whispered hoarsely. Rosa smiled softly, relieved, and started to back away. She wasn't needed anymore. She was just a nanny after all. But before she could turn, Adrian's voice stopped her. "Wait," he said firmly. Rosa froze, unsure. "You comforted her," Adrian continued, his eyes studying her with a curious intensity. "You stayed when no one else noticed. Who are you?" His tone wasn't rude, just commanding, the kind of tone of a man used to answers. Rosa lowered her gaze. "I'm nobody, sir. Just a nanny." I saw she was scared. She clutched her hands nervously, already expecting him to dismiss her presence. But instead he looked at her differently, as if trying to understand why a stranger's kindness moved him more than anything else had in years. The days that followed should have been ordinary, yet Rosa found her mind drifting back to that moment in the park. She didn't expect to see Adrian or Lily again. They belonged to a different world, one of glass offices, private cars, and tailored suits. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. 3 days later, while Rosa was dropping off the children she cared for at a music lesson, she heard a familiar little voice call out, "Miss Rosa!" She turned, surprised, and there was Lily, smiling, running toward her with open arms. Behind her, Adrian approached, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. "Daddy! That's her! That's the nice lady from the park," Lily said excitedly. Rosa flushed, not knowing how to react. Adrian inclined his head. "Rosa, is it?" I asked around at the park. "I had to know who you were. Do you work nearby?" Rosa hesitated but answered honestly. "I work for the Peterson family." I I take care of their kids," Adrian studied her, noting her modest clothes, the exhaustion in her posture, the humility in her voice, and something about her unsettled him, not in a bad way, but in a way that made him question his assumptions about people. Most in his circle smiled with ulterior motives, praised him with hidden agendas. Rosa, however, had held his daughter without expecting anything in return. "Lily hasn't stopped talking about you," Adrian said slowly. "She says you sang to her." "She hasn't let me forget it," Rosa smiled shyly. "Children, they just need to feel safe. That's all I did." Adrian tilted his head, almost curious. "And who makes you feel safe, Rosa?" The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked her that. She swallowed hard. "No one. But that doesn't matter. What matters is the children." For a long moment, silence hung between them, charged with unspoken thoughts. Adrian, a man who closed billion-dollar deals without hesitation, suddenly found himself wondering why he cared about this woman's answer. And Rosa, a woman who had been invisible to society, suddenly realized someone was looking at her, not as a servant, but as a person. Weeks turned into months, and against all logic, their paths continued to cross. Adrian began inviting Rosa and the children she nannied to play dates with Lily, offering rides when he happened to be nearby, slowly peeling back the layers of the world she lived in. He learned about her struggles, about her sick mother, about how she skipped meals so the children she watched never missed theirs. And Rosa, though cautious, began to see Adrian not as a millionaire CEO, but as a father who adored his little girl, who carried invisible wounds of his own, loneliness, pressure, and a longing for sincerity. Gossip swirled in whispers when Adrian was seen speaking to a nanny, but he didn't care. In his office tower, surrounded by wealth and power, he realized none of it mattered compared to the quiet grace of a woman who held his daughter in the park without expecting thanks. One crisp evening, after a small dinner with Lily, Adrian walked Rosa to the bus stop. The night air was cool, the city lights glowing around them. He stopped, turned to her, and said words that shocked her. "Rosa, you once said no one makes you feel safe. I want to change that. For you. For Lily." "For us," Rosa stared at him, heart pounding, unable to believe what she was hearing. She shook her head. "But I'm just a nanny." "You're—" "I'm a man," he interrupted gently, "and a father. And I know what I saw that day in the park. You gave my daughter comfort when she needed it most. That is worth more than anything I own." Tears welled in Rosa's eyes. For the first time, someone saw her. Not her poverty, not her worn shoes, not her struggles, but her heart. And in that moment, under the city lights, the poor nanny and the millionaire CEO realized that kindness had stitched their lives together in ways neither of them could have imagined. Sometimes one act of kindness changes a whole life. If Rose's story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Share this story with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe to Kindness Vibes for more emotional stories that prove love and compassion are stronger than money. And remember, no act of kindness is ever too small. It might just change someone's world.